Hello everyone, this is Emilia Reyes and I'm really sad that I cannot deliver this participation in live, but I'm really grateful that Bridget and the video team is helping me with this process by doing a videotape, so thank you Bridget in the first place, and thank you all for attending this presentation. What I want to talk to you about today is how is it that gender can be inscribed in the logic of public policies. In the first place, gender is a category of analysis and it refers to the social construct of sexual difference. It is a category epistemologically placed in a mezzo level. That means that every person, every human in the entire history of the world has a gender condition. So each tradition has their own concepts, and they are fascinating in the epistemological point of view. But we have to be very rigorous when we're dealing with public policies and laws, because this is the code of states. And we have actually drafted our own concepts in dealing with these matters. So I'm going to tell you about the tradition so I can come to the climate change policies in a minute. In the 80s, there was this tradition called Women in Development, that is also called WEED, and it regards to the way in which women can be conceived as well as economic agencies and not only passive subjects of public policies. And they were promoting very actively the inclusion of women in every part of every aspect of intervention. And so they promoted, for instance, the integration of women into projects of microcredits, collective participation, and but then in the 90s, there was this other tradition called Gender in Development, which is also called GED, where we had these concepts to analyze if a public policy was reproducing the gender roles, of it was promoting the equality between women and men, and these concepts are the gender practical needs that would refer precisely to what is it that from the point of view of gender roles, what is it that you need to do to perform those roles with a more accessible tool, or in a more accessible manners. For instance, if you're giving women clean stoves, well, that means that you're helping them to make use of their roles, but at the same time, you're just granting that women will be cooking for ages and ages to come. And there's another concept called gender strategic interests that precisely help you to analyze what are the public policies that will help to not only diminish the gaps, but also to build a structural order that can hold women into equal terms with men. So, such as, for instance, the eradication of every form of violence against women, and not only conceiving women as part of microcredit projects, but also to wonder how is it that we're going to introduce women into the macroeconomic logics as well. So this is a very important approach, because it can help us to know that although it is very important to help daily life of people, we have to be aware that what we're doing has a very limited impact. I mean, and it is important, but I think that in the end, we have to be at least aware, or to be warned, what is the impact of the policies that we're implementing. Because if it is not us who have the planning and the budgets and the financing and the partnerships and the ability to think in medium and longer term, then who is it going to do it? So I think that we have a very huge responsibility in assessing what kind of policies are we promoting when we're addressing structural issues such as climate change. And there's another tradition that has become really useful in the last years, that it has been promoted from several years, but now we are really aware of the implications, and it has to do with the care economy, and it refers to the extent in which the domestic and care non-paid work has an impact in the lives of women and men. What we know is that women has been incorporated into the public sphere, but men have not been integrated into the into the private sphere. So it has to do with the sexual division of labor, and this is a huge topic because, for instance, we have national surveys in Mexico. We have one, and we know that women are performing the domestic and care non-paid work, and it can be translated into the 21% of the gross domestic product. That is even larger than the 17% that is produced on the manufacturing industry. And so it has several connotations, and men are not doing their share of work. I'm going to put you an example in applying this to climate change policies, because I was asked to advise on a project referring to earthworms, where the community was to do to manage the project. So because this was a sustainable and community project, so there was some budget for the project, and men were in the first part of the project and related to the budget part, because it had to do with the infrastructure needed to build the place where the worms were to be. So men were being paid, and they were advised, and they learned new knowledge. So they were formally hired to do this infrastructure. But then in the end, who were the ones who had to get up in the morning and do all the caring of the worms and feed them and take care of them? Well, that was women. And in the end, the other part in which there was money involved was when you have to shovel the substance that was derived from the worm, and to put it into sacks and then take it to the market and sell it. And that was the other part of the project, which involved money. And men, as you can see, men are involved in both parts of the projects that are related to money. And but the daily care work that is invisible, that's always relying on women's shoulders. So that means that we're adding an extra burden on the shoulder of women, and they have plenty of work already on their shoulders. So this has to do with, for instance, indicators of time use in relation as well as the value that we're adding in a project. And these are points of reference to analyze what kind of public policies are we proposing. I just want to say something else, that it has to do as well with a concern for human rights, because when you're only instrumentalizing people as by saying that men can be used to do these things and women are useful to do these other things, then we're looking at them as function and not as subjects of rights, and that's discriminative. That's a discrimination, and when you're looking at women and men as stereotypes for gender roles, well, that's a discrimination, and states have a mandate to acknowledge and guaranteeing the exercise of rights. So this is a very huge issue. And from the climate change perspective, we know that there are vulnerabilities due to gender roles, and we know that as well there are vulnerabilities due to the change of roles. For instance, when we have a migrant population due to the impacts of climate change, we know that the roles are going to change. Maybe they're even challenging the social gender order, but in the same time they have no structural basis to cope with that, with the impact of that changing, and they may be resenting and even leave the aggravation of their inequalities they're living in. At the same time, for men who are trying to take care of children and family, but they have not the structural possibilities to help them to do that, because now the social protection in regard to the care of children is only addressing women, and men have not the capacity to access to those services. So what I'm saying is that there are vulnerabilities due to the gender roles, but we have vulnerability due to the breaking of roles, and we have to know what is it that we're facing. There are capabilities as well due to the gender roles, and but we can also reinforce or build capabilities due to the breaking of the gender roles. So there are 4 aspects that we can look at when we're designing a public policy, and to know what points of entry we want. Of course, there are capabilities due to the gender roles, and those are fine and those are perfect, and actually those are the first one that we can rely into when we're thinking about adaptation or resilience. But actually, I think there's another field of possibility that has to do with the capacity building in regards to the breaking of the gender roles, and so as to address as well a new social gender order in which we are not reproducing inequalities. Thank you very much.